Claire Danes, terrific. As soon as I saw her, I knew that she was the one to play Juliet, just because she had such an emotional intensity.
He's hilarious. He's hilarious, and because he plays such traumatic and complex roles, I don't know if people realize how funny he can be in sort of a slapsticky kind of way.
But softwood light through yonder window breaks.
He's so incredible in his imitations that he can do of people, and he has this famous Michael Jackson shtick that he does, and he's brilliant at it. My dress kept floating up, and we had to keep reshooting because you could see my underwear.
That's the reason why I got excited about it. That's the reason why I wanted to do it, because it wasn't what we've seen 1,000 times before, you know? It wasn't the exact way of doing it. I mean, it is the classic, you know, masterpiece of love stories in my mind. You know, you can't get much better than this. I mean, if Shakespeare were alive today, I think he'd agree that he wanted his stuff to sort of live on and sort of change and mold for the times, you know?
Leonardo's first role as a romantic lead, and his first experience playing Shakespeare. It was this film that sent him into the realm of Hollywood heartthrob.
Okay, Leonardo, good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Would you ever think, do you remember we sat in the middle of old Tucson on a dusty western street, we were wearing 2 guns, and for the quick and the dead? If I had said, Leonardo, in a couple of years, you're going to play Romeo, what would you have said?
I would have said, no way.
Well, Leonardo really was just a given. I saw his face in a magazine before I'd ever heard of him, and I went, oh, he looks like Romeo. And it said, that actor. And, well, what does that mean? And then, of course, the next month, I think he was nominated for an Academy Award for Gilbert Grape. Saw his work, met with him. And, you know, he travelled to Sydney twice, coach, sort of staying in, with his father, because he was so interested in the idea. And really, he's been a sort of a bit of a partner in making the film happen. It wasn't easy to get the film made.
And we go way back.
We do. A long time.
Yeah, this boy's life. And I know at that time you would have said, no way at all.
Well, it wasn't... this is an interesting thing, because playing this Romeo is so much different than, I think, doing a traditional version of it, you know? That's the reason why I got excited about it. That's the reason why I wanted to do it, because it wasn't what we've seen 1,000 times before, you know? It wasn't the exact way of doing it. And I think that what Baz did to this movie was bring sort of a heightened reality and made this fantasy world that completely relates to the times we're going through right now, you know, with the violence and everything.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, my next question was, Leonardo, the concept, you know, when people hear it's Romeo and Juliet, you know, are we going to see the old costumes, and is it going to be set in ancient England? But it is different. It's modern day, right?
It's not necessarily modern day, because you couldn't put this sort of story into any place in the world. It's a heightened reality, you know. It's I think what we're going through right now in sort of a very campish, loud sort of way. There's flamboyant costumes. I mean, we have drag queens, and we have guns, and we have cars. We have all these things, but it's a sort of this contained world which sort of represents. It's this sort of contained small place which represents so much, and I think that the story just completely clicks into it. And I don't think that. I mean, if Shakespeare were alive today, I think he'd agree that he wanted his stuff to sort of live on and sort of change and mold for the times, you know.
But yet, if you could listen to the soundtrack and not see the visual, much of it would sound like a play.
Yeah, well, we are speaking the bard. We are saying the same words, and it's the same story, and it's the same things that are exactly in the play, except that a lot of things are made a lot more clear, I think. I mean, I think the chemistry between the style and the design and the way of doing this movie just meshed completely well with the play. I mean, I think it was just like meant to be. I mean, as soon as I was there and I was working on it, I was like, wow, this really works. And as soon as I saw it, it takes you 2 minutes to adjust to what's going on, then you're saying, wow, this really, you know, it needed to be like this.
And you know what else works? You do it not in the British accent, but in an American accent, which I think that adds to it. It makes the language clearer. And did you have any problems with speaking in that Shakespearean dialect, which is poetry?
To tell you the truth, I know that Shakespeare actually wrote some of his stuff for sort of the American way of saying things, you know, the American sounds, and a lot of that stuff was written that way, but it's always sort of ingrained in people's minds that if you're going to do Shakespeare, you know, put softwood light through yonder window breaks, that sort of thing. But a lot of it was written for the way we're doing it. And we have a lot of different accents too. You know, we have this sort of Hispanic, you know, theme to it too. With the Capulets are sort of all, you know, Latin.
John Leguizamo was
terrific.
Terrific, yeah, yeah. I'll guarantee you one thing. When we talk about another movie that you're doing 3 or 4 years from now, these are lines you'll never forget.
Absolutely not. I mean, it is the classic, the, you know, masterpiece of love stories in my mind. You know, you can't get much better than this.
We mentioned John, but just a quick comment on some of the other cast.
Claire Danes, terrific. As soon as I saw her, I knew that she was the one to play Juliet, just because she had such an emotional intensity and she has a strong way of doing Juliet that hasn't been done before.
I remember after I would shoot those love scenes, and I was just completely infatuated with Romeo as Juliet all day, and it sort of bleeds into who you are and your general mood. And the high you experience when you're in love with somebody is like none other. So I just really had a great time shooting those scenes. And then, you know, when I had to shoot the scenes where I'm being disowned by my father and I'm doing the death scene, it just really ripped me apart. And I would say to Baz, you know, this is just so impossible. This is so draining. I don't want to face these feelings. And he said, well, Claire, you know, that's what you have to do when you're playing Juliet. You know, that's the deal. So.
I don't know if it was a drawback or not. As I mentioned, I know Leonardo quite well, and he can be a funny guy.
Oh, he's hilarious. He's hilarious, and because he plays such traumatic and complex roles, I don't know if people realize how funny he can be in sort of a slapsticky kind of way. He's so incredible in his imitations that he can do of people, and he has this famous Michael Jackson shtick that he does, and he's brilliant at it. So yeah, he's really funny.
He is.
With Claire, I really searched the world for Juliet, and I hadn't known of my so-called life. And Jane Campion said to me, you know, oh, you got to see Claire. And when I put her with Leonardo, she walked up to Leonardo and she went, you know, art thou not Romeo and a Montague? Boom, right? The strength of her. You see, people say it's a very modern Juliet. It's not. It's the Juliet in the text. The Juliet in the text is a modern, not modern. She is actually this very active, you know, strong. She takes control. You know, you want to have sex with me, you better meet me at the church tomorrow at 9. I'll send someone, you know. You know, hey, I didn't come down to the last shower, and yet she's innocent at the same time.
Another young actor plays, actually older than me, but he plays Mercutio. His name is Harold Pirino, and he does a fantastic Mercutio, and with a lot of other different, you know, Pete Postlewaite.
Just a great, you know, Pete's terrific. Just a great cast. As it ended, I thought, wow, don't miss Romeo and Juliet. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
If I got to play our interview for This Boy's Life.
Oh, I'd love to see it. Just to see how much I haven't changed. I'm still a little punk. I want to see that. If you just realize that all that matters in the end is your body of work, you can become happy. And the best thing about it is just the opportunity of working on all these terrific, you know, movies with terrific actors. It's exciting. I thought to myself when I heard of this project, why do another Romeo and Juliet? You know, why? It's been done well before. What's the purpose in doing it now? And as soon as I met Baz and he told me the themes, you know, that he wanted to bring into it, I really felt like, wow, this is an important sort of movie to do, and it needed that change. It needed this new sort of boost to it. Shakespeare's really tricky because it's not like you can go in there and improvise all the time, and if you don't feel like saying a line, ask if you can cut it out. I mean, everything that Shakespeare wrote is exact, but once you really get into the character and once you realize how human he really was, you sort of get lost and you almost forget for a little while that it's actually Shakespeare. You're so involved in the story. He has a lot of emotional places that he goes through, and that was a little bit draining at times. They're going to definitely get a way of seeing Shakespeare's work done that has never been done before. I mean, just off the top of my head, they're going to see drag queens, wild, you know, tripped out acid scenes, aquatic stuff going on, futuristic cars, a lot of gunplay, and a lot of high-powered emotion. It combines so many things, and it's so powerful, and it just doesn't let up. I want to get to a place where I'm just known as a good actor who takes good choices, and I hope that I will get other people around me that want to do the same thing. In 10 years, I hope that, I'm still maintaining a good stride.
Claire Danes is the most fantastic young actress I've ever come across. She's a ball of emotion, a powerhouse, as I like to put it. Great to work with her. I mean, she's able to get into the stuff like that and really feed you what you need, you know what I mean?
When we first did the audition, she was the only girl that like came up right to my face, was like doing the lines, and wasn't afraid to like grab the back of my neck and like kiss me and like hold my hand, and all the other girls were sort of staring off into the stars, like trying to be flowery and beautiful, and she was just like hardcore about the whole thing. So it was cool.
He's such an exquisite actor, and we've all adored him. And yeah, he's been under.
He's very confused about the whole clashing of the two societies in his world. He hates all the violence. I think what he mainly understands that a lot of people don't in that world, a lot of his friends don't, is the fact that love is really what's driving all these people. And that's what he believes in, that the reason why everyone's killing each other is because they love each other so much. The emotional aspect of him was pretty hard. I mean, he is truly upset throughout the whole second half of the movie. I mean, he's in a rage, you know? He's just like, his whole world is destroyed. So doing that much is certainly, it takes a toll on you, you know? You gotta make sure that, you know, you're keeping yourself healthy if you want to do it that much, because you seriously get sick a lot. What I didn't want to do was sort of have that perfect way of speaking Shakespeare, you know what I mean? I didn't want to make every syllable sound beautiful and have it all rhyme and coincide in a sort of beautiful way. I wanted to sort of make it more like conversation, and I think that's what everyone really tried to do. I think it's just a tragic love story of two people that are doomed, and two people that go against the odds of what they should be doing for love, and you know, it has mass universal appeal, I think. You know, it's like Romeo and Juliet, you know, everyone knows it. Claire just came in and was just so in the moment and so there and so not trying to do this like little angelic flower Juliet, you know, like with the hand movements and everything so precise and, you know, just false. She just like looked me in the eye, and like when we were doing the scene where we're, you know, supposed to be together, she came right up to me, looked me right in the eye, and just started doing the lines, you know what I mean, without any, you know, conscience as far as how she should be, and she was just pure in there and great.
Juliet with guns and hot cars in this contemporary setting. Now, when you heard about this, did you get the idea right away?
I didn't get it right away because I was almost a part of it, you know. I started off with Baz, and he was the director, Baz Luhrmann, and he proposed this idea to me of doing a contemporary sort of fantasy world with Romeo and Juliet, and I didn't quite get it at first, but then we explored a lot of different ideas. I mean, there were times when there was like he wanted the characters to sort of jump around in rollerblades, and I was like, no, that's not going to work. And then we finally sort of pinpointed what were the most important parts of the play, which was the violence and the two opposing families, and bringing sort of guns instead of swords. I mean, what a sword sort of meant back then. I mean, at any time you could go to battle and you could die, sort of like now with the guns. You know, a lot of people carry them around, and we wanted to bring that in, and the religious aspect, and sort of love triumphing over hate. And so we really, when he really started to focus on that, everything started to become really clear. And I think that, and when I started filming, it felt almost like we weren't doing Shakespeare for a little while, just because everything just felt so real, you know? And I finally saw the movie, and it worked. It wasn't like I needed to, like, adjust, you know? Like, I needed, like, a half an hour to say, okay, what the heck is going on here before I could get into the story. It was, like, 1 or 2 minutes, and then, bam, okay, I know what's going on, you know?
Now, do you love Shakespeare personally?
I can't say that I was, you know, neither here nor there with him. All I knew was, you know, just like any other person my age, you hear Shakespeare, like, oh, God, you know, those long-winded plays that you just don't understand, that you have no clue about. And then I finally, when I really, you know, read Romeo and Juliet for real and really understood what was going on, it was something so timeless that, you know, something that sort of defied the time and sort of molds into what's going on in our lifestyle now. And the character Romeo was such a it was like one of the earliest rebels, you know. He rebelled against his entire family for love, you know. And I thought that was a profound sort of thing. And once I started to get into it, and I realized what sort of a ballsy guy he was by marrying Juliet and like saying no to his family and all his friends and everything just for this girl. And she like tells him, all right, if you love me, then marry me. Let's see what you got. And he does it, and he sort of risks his whole life for it. And it was a great character, you know.
That's right. You're shooting Titanic, your first big kind of commercial
First
picture.
one, yeah.
Now, that's not the kind of thing you're usually drawn to.
Not usually. I can't say it will always be either. I mean, I want to try something new. You know, I want to. You can't sort of do the same thing over and over again. Not to say that I have, because I don't believe I have, but I've stuck to sort of the lower budget things, which I actually like to do better, just because it gives you, you know, you're more involved, I think. But I wanted to just have this experience just for the sake of sort of having it, because you've got to try different things in life, you know. And not saying that that's what I'm going to stick to, because I don't believe that, but, you know, it couldn't hurt.
But you're drawn to this because it's another, like this, romantic story.
It's another romantic story. It's a love story about two people on the Titanic, and then, I mean, it's a beautifully written story, and it's the ultimate, the ultimate tragedy. All these people just sort of dying, and then you have the whole upper class and lower class thing sort of going on too. I mean, what happened on the Titanic was they thought that they had a boat that was completely unsinkable. Then they hit an iceberg and they started to sink, and nobody believed that they were sinking. So then all the first class passengers got on the lifeboats, and there was only enough lifeboats to save like 30% of the people on the ship, because that's how unsinkable they thought the ship was. So then all the people in first class just stayed around the ship on their lifeboats, and then everybody else just sort of was sitting there in the water, freezing to death, dying, and nobody ever came back to get them except for one boat. And so it's a tragic, just a horrible story, and it's also real too, which really got me attracted to it. It's not like doing, you know, Cyborg 7 or something.
Yes.
Not afraid to let their guard.
This tie, you don't like it? I think it's kind of cool, actually. I like this place a lot. Everything's really inexpensive, which I like the most.
It was Mexico City that 21-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio was raving about while shooting the Romeo and Juliet wedding. His co-star Claire Danes was only 16. As is the case now for Leo, wedding bells back then weren't a big must.
For me to get married now would take a lot. Marriage wouldn't be in even my realm. I think our version, has a little more spunk or whatnot.
Thank you very much.
I have all these ideas in my head of what Romeo's supposed to be, and I wanted to erase that and sort of just make him a real guy.
Friends say his longest relationship was with model Kristen Zhang, and Leonardo admits his big screen Romeo experience didn't necessarily translate to real life.
I certainly don't think I would go to quite the extremes that Romeo did at all, but I definitely have to say that, like everyone else, when you have a girlfriend, you get that side and it comes out in you and you can't help it, It's that, but I'm talking about like a, an oochie-coochie sort of way. I'm not talking about like this passionate love thing that he went through, because I can't even identify with that stuff. I mean, that's really intense. I'm just talking about like, being romantic, I guess, which is, I guess I have a little of.
You're blushing.
I guess so. I hate to talk about that.
I discovered they had these scenes where like Romeo hung out with the rest of the guys and talked about women. I started to realize that he was a normal guy, and that's what really started to make me appeal to the character.
But by the time it came to cast the right Juliet, Claire Danes was the one who caught Leonardo's eye and held his attention.
She had a lot of power to what she was saying, and she was the only one during the audition that looked me right in the eye and really, gave it to me and didn't let loose.
He's so brilliant. He's really, really, truly amazing as an actor and as a person too. So it was great to learn about him on and off camera.
With Romeo and Juliet, Leonardo was suddenly a hot commodity. One magazine pegged him as one of Hollywood's elite.
When you read something about you, people sort of want to define you in one sort of way and say that's what you are, when you yourself don't even know what you are, you know what I mean? Get to a point where you're saying, you're reading this and saying, is this what I am? I don't even know that. Why are you impressing this on me? I don't know that. So, I mean, I've been away so much, and my home life has been so the same. I mean, since junior high school, it's sort of remained the same. You know, I just have a lot more responsibilities as far as, like, this is like my job now, you know what I mean? And, you know, I get recognized a lot more than I ever have in my life, but, you know, how bad is that? I mean, somebody coming up to you and telling you they like your work is not the worst thing in the world. It's not like you get, you know, a knife stuck to your throat every day or something. It's not that tedious, and it's not really as bad as it's cracked up to be, I don't think.
Leo had already spent 4 months in Mexico shooting Romeo and Juliet when James Cameron,
one of Hollywood's hottest sex symbols.
It's fun, you know? You realize, hey, you know, some girls kind of dig me here. It's a nice, refreshing thing. You're like, whoa, you know, that's nice.